Going back to people in their relationships and how much sex they're having or not having. In your professional clinical experience, what is like a reasonable amount of sex that people should be having given, you know, an average life? You work 40, 50 hours a week. You hang out maybe on the weekends. Just, I'm just saying, like, not anybody that's working 100 hours a week, just like nothing crazy, just like average or median. Like what's a fair amount?
So when we look at some statistics that are out there, we find that people who are adults who are in committed relationships have sex roughly around 1 to 2 times per week, right? And of course, there's going to be exceptions to the rules because of you have kids, you have work. Some people are working like 60 hours a week. So I would say, you know, again, I try not to put numbers on it, but if you're having sex twice a month, you're in good shape, right?
Twice a month?
Twice a month.
You're in good shape at 2 times a month?
Yes.
You also frustrated.
Why is that?
That, not necessarily, right? Because there's this sense of if you're doing it at least twice a month, there's still that connection with you and your partner. There's still that element of like, we're trying to make this a priority, but there might be some things getting in the way, right? So, now, if it's happening less than that and you want more, then that's when you would come see me and figure out, okay, let's figure out how we can add more sex to that. But twice a month, I would say you're okay. I wouldn't drop lower than that.
So what's the difficulty?
Well, I mean, that's once every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I guess that's not too bad, but damn.
I mean, the desire,
that's including the weekends also.
And I work, but I'm off of work on Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Work hours, like difficult schedules, you know. It just got to be something that makes sense.
Extreme.
Like two.
That's why I was saying on like average, like with people who don't have crazy work schedules, don't have a bunch of kids,
no way.
Like just like regular, you know.
Again, there's no definitive. There's not enough data. Number one, to say like this is how much people are having sex. Because number one, people lie, and there's a lot of people who just don't want to divulge that.
They lie in the sessions.
Not in the sessions, but like when we're doing research,
they better be telling you the truth
in the data.
You always have
the margin of error,
margin of error. Right.
But I was just asking, like, what do you see? Like, that's what I was asking.
What do I see in my practice? Again, people are coming to me because they need help in this area. So I've had couples who haven't had sex in years,
and they're trying to
bring back that desire. They want to have sex more often in their relationship, or figure out, like, if it's not in this relationship, where it's going to happen.
You finesse it into
I
something
also
else.
specialize in non-monogamous relationships. So folks are coming to see if they need to open their relationship, and if they have decided to open their relationship, how is that going to look?
I might visit you one day. But look, check this out. I have a question. Like, I want to go like one step deeper, right? Forget about how much sex you should have. Really, this is for women. How many orgasms should you have? Because if you have sex twice a month, but you don't climax,
you're doing it on your own.
I mean, yeah, you might be doing that too.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what you were getting at? I'm sorry.
No. When I was trying, I wasn't even thinking about you handling yourself. I kind of threw that out the window. I would assume if we're only having sex twice a month, I'm beating my shit somewhere, right? Like
all the time,
right? Yeah, like that's probably where the porn addictions come.
You have to think about, how we're defining sex as well. Like, sex doesn't always have to be penis and vagina penetration. It can be so many other things. So if you can engage in other forms of sex with your partner, that number can go up more. And that's the issue that a lot of people have, is that they think that sex just has to be penetration, right? They forget about all the other stuff. And so when they only are focusing on penis and vagina sex, that builds that pressure. They're like, oh, I have to have this. I have to shave. I have to shower. I have to have the energy. Like they're thinking.
Can you
about
share
all
the other
these
stuff
things.
and details?
So,
audience, please.
Yeah. So other things could be hand jobs, fingering, making out. Like, making out is a lost fucking art. Nobody does it anymore for some reason.
I lost
dry humping. Like, can we think about the things
dry
that
hump
you
is kind of
did.
childish though.
But think about
I don't know.
you did before you started having sex. That used to get you
Finger
off.
bang.
You rubbed that thing against my head.
Right. You used to get excited. You were like, y'all were doing all the things
Yes,
because you just weren't ready to take that leap yet. And now all of a sudden, because you've had sex, like full out penetrative sex, you're like, oh, all the other things can go by the wayside. But all those other things used to get you off. So why would you stop doing those things? Like you can do the dry humping, you could do the finger banging.
I heard that on the comedy special the other night. That's why I said it.
Dry humping is a little too much for me, but
other things.
I do the finger shit.
Not to say
I'm
that I
over here.
don't like it, but I feel like dry humping was so like enticing because maybe people weren't having sex, or it's kind of like a thing that happened when you were like younger, right? Mm-hmm. So it was just like, oh, that felt good. So like when you're like constantly getting the real thing, dry humping is nothing. Like to some people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got blue balls dry humping. Never again. Scratch that shit.
But you don't have to. Like,
but that's the thing, you know.
You could do that along with, you know, some hand jobs, some rubbing, like to release that, right?
So what are
so orgasms don't always have to be the goal. It can be like, I need a release, and this is, you know, what I can do in this moment. That doesn't require me to do all of the maintenance that sometimes is involved with sex. Because some people are very particular about how they have sex. Like, people need to shower, you know, right before, not hours before, right before. People need to,
like that.
you know, wear lingerie or be manscaped. Like, there's so many.
I don't know.
Boxes.
Don't come home with that all day dick.
Yeah, like my thing is, I'm a spontaneous guy. Like, listen,
but
Rico like a little mush.
If you gotta stop and now you got like, I'm not saying if you had like you just worked out or something, that's different.
No,
but
you've
like,
been on the subway all day.
I never.
On,
I don't live in New York. I don't live in New York.
Sitting on train seats.
I'm from Jersey. We don't do subways.
They don't have trains out here.
We don't have subways. Like,
when they come,
I don't know.
So can you push on that a little bit more? Because like I thought of that, right? Like jokingly we're saying it, but in reality, some people be like, "Yo, it's a little musty. It's okay," and she like, "No, I want to wash up. Nah, it's good. We good,
me
right?"
And do be liking a little.
Then
must.
you have the other one where she could be like,
"Some of you worked hard today, baby."
But what if he's getting rejected or she's getting rejected, and let's say he says something like, "Oh, let me just open your mouth and I'll just do this just to let me off," and she's like, "I'm not in the mood for that." Well, I'm not in the mood for that.
Yeah, how do you get around that?
Like, can you keep a relationship together without sex?
So okay, there were a lot of questions in there. So I will first off say that yes, there are people who have sexless marriages and they work for them. That's what they have decided together that works, right? And there are some people, and I see Rico shaking his head like, nah.
There's no point.
But there are
just
some
a friend.
people that like it is just a friendship. You're roommates, right? But there's a different level of intimacy and commitment that they are not willing to give up. And so they're
basically
why
hoarders.
It works.
That's how
I wouldn't call it hoarding.
It's like hoarding. It's like you don't really like this thing no more, but you like it enough because it meant something to you, so you can't get rid of it.
No, she said they still get along. They're still friends. There's still companionship.
Different kind of intimacy.
Yeah.
It's a deeper level of
There's no deeper
commitment,
level.
Companionship.
It's just a deeper denial.
It's just not the passion. Like literally, the passion is the only thing missing from their relationship.
Passion is life.
I feel like
if you're not passionate about what you're doing,
think about how many people there are in this world. Yeah, but think about how many people there are in this world. It would be absurd for us to think that there are not people out there who don't live the same like lifestyles that we do. So, like, for you, passion may be a prerequisite and it may be necessary. But for the next person that's only having sex twice a month, then perhaps it's not.
Sexless.
No. I'm just making a comparison. That's all.
Yo.
I get what Aaron is saying, but I feel like you got to find someone like that that's also like you. I feel like you can't go into no marriage and be like, well, this is how I am. If we're gonna get married, sex is off the table. And I don't feel like
does it start like that?
No, that's the problem.
And that's right,
and that's where the issue starts to come in because we call it desire discrepancy clinically, where one person is desiring sex more than the other person is desiring sex, and so typically it starts off in the beginning of the relationship. The sex is great, the intimacy is great. They may notice some like flags that they're like, well, this did happen at the beginning of our relationship and I just brushed it off. Like, but as time progressed, it got worse and worse. And so now that they're at a point where like it's becoming a deal breaker. It's problematic. And so what can we do to resolve this, if any? And I work with a lot of clients through it who are able to resolve it. They're able to get back that passion and that spark that they once had. And there are some couples who, one partner actually may be asexual and it's always been like that. Or we might have a partner who had some significant medical issues in their life. And so they are a bit hesitant to engage in certain behaviors. So there's so many different variables that it's really hard to just pinpoint like this is the exact reason that it has changed and this is the exact reason how we're going to.
Can you describe for the audience in terms of asexuality, what that looks like?
Mm-hmm. So an asexual person is someone who does not desire sexual connection. They don't have that sexual attraction to others. They may be emotionally attracted to someone or romantically attracted to someone, but there is no desire for actual sex. And it varies, right? So there's a umbrella of terms. Like you have people who are demisexual, demi-romantic. Like there's a lot of other things that's.
Is that like demi, like with wine? Is that the same? Is it the same?
I'm not sure because I don't know.
Oh,
what
is it?
No, but I feel like the prefix demi means.
That's
something.
what I was. Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah. So it is demi in the sense of parts.
Yeah, like semi.
So
if you break down demi, that means part of something else.
Yeah.
Okay. So they
Parts
may
of.
want to just get to know the person a little bit more before they engage in some type of romantic or sexual relationship.
But that's still not asexual. Mary, can you do me a favor? Hey, Mary, can you see approximately how many asexual people there are in America? Like that is that's an ultimate exception to the rule.
Mm-hmm.
I would be pissed. Like, yo, what? You just now coming out the woodworks with this asexual shit?
I have a question. So what and I imagine this occurs less as far as like what you see in your practice. What happens when the woman is saying, well, we're not having enough sex? Or am I wrong that it doesn't happen that much?
I get that as well.
A lot?
I have a client now who is like, I want more sex, and he is not giving it to me. And
wow, it's only one. So,
Identify as asexual. It's very rare.
1.7 million in the world or the United States?
1.7%.
Oh, sorry. In the world or United States?
That makes sense. So it's less about 2. Let's just say hypothetically 2%.
Yeah.
Which I would
say most
like
of America is fucking.
There's just probably like some therapy unpacking that needs to be done.
So, well, I want to know like what you see with the women. Like what does that look like? What are the men saying? Like I guess their partners. How do they get over it?
That ranges as well.
Because I feel like this is something we don't typically see or hear about. So,
So from at least the clients that I've worked with, there are some men who are actually being unfaithful. And so that is the reason why they haven't had sex. And because...
So unfair.
And before they became unfaithful, it was... a lot of times they felt like they didn't have a place in the relationship or their partner was controlling too much of their life, right? So one client I have, she is the breadwinner of the relationship. And so he didn't feel like he was able to contribute. And so he just didn't want to have sex because it reminded him of so many other things in his past life that he wasn't able to talk about it. So yeah, that's a lot of times it's, again, related to the emotional intimacy of things, not so much like, oh, they've gotten bigger or, I'm just not attracted to them anymore. A lot of times it's some type of emotional disconnect that's happening.
Is it hard for the men to address that and actually...
A lot of times they don't want to admit it. At least with the women, they're able to say, like, I don't want to have sex with him because I feel like his mother. Whereas men, it takes them a while sometimes to recognize that that is the issue. right? They don't. A lot of times they don't even know.
Yeah, sometimes they just
what
don't
that
know.
issue is.
We know. We just don't want to admit it to ourselves because then we know we gotta move on.
Which leads to a question that we had on the call for this subject. And Erin brought a very strong point because she said it comes from different places. When someone commits to monogamy, from a man's perspective, a man is like, all right, I'm monogamous, I'm going to be faithful. And the woman knows the man is going to be faithful. He's not going to cheat. He's not going to mess around. Isn't withholding sex become like a form of abuse? Because you know he's not going to go get it nowhere else. So you have all the power. He doesn't have one in the chamber. He doesn't have a side. Basically, his needs are at your mercy in a sense.
I just want to clarify that. That's definitely not how it was presented on the call. We didn't talk about the woman being, holding all the cards, knowing that the man is not going to go outside the marriage or partnership or whatever. Essentially, Alan believes, or he asserts, that it is abuse when a partner withholds sex from the other partner. And
faithful.
No, that's not how it was presented on the call.
Okay, we're presenting it now. Let's present it now. Because we did at one point say, what if it wasn't all these extra things? But
extra what?
Because we had list on the call a bunch of different reasons in terms of unfaithfulness that caused them to withhold sex. A bunch of different stress, strenuous works. We listed all these things, and then at the end of that, we were like, okay, let's just assume it's none of those things. None of the justifying factors that people want to make justifiable, right? If a person is just withholding sex from somebody who is faithful, who is, let's just say, maybe they might have like your average 40, 50-hour work week, so it's not perfect anyways. You know what I'm saying? You're dealing with regular life things. Is that a form of abuse to withhold sex from your partner under certain conditions?
Under those circumstances. Like, no, yeah.
I definitely think it's a form of manipulation. I don't know if I would fully call it abuse because abuse is a very large term. It's a strong term to use. So you don't always want to say, oh, this person is abusing me. But they definitely are manipulating you. And that's what we put it under the umbrella when we talk about sexuality. We talk about sexualization. And so how do we use our sexuality to get what we want, essentially? And sometimes that can be used for good. Sometimes it can be used for evil. And so that can be problematic, definitely, in long-term relationships, using that as a bargaining chip. Now, I'm not saying, like, if you really don't feel like having sex, that you can't say no, but saying, like, I'm not going to have sex with you because you did X, Y, and Z, or because I want to get something from you, in a sense, that can be really manipulative and can cause a lot of damage to the relationship.
Mary, correct me if I'm wrong. Is manipulation a form of verbal abuse?
No.
Oh, no. Can you Google it, please?
Mary knows what she's talking about.
No, she don't. Go ahead and...
Wait, are you saying... You're saying...
Something? It's fine now. No, that wasn't it. It was like...
Can you just do that for me?
Wait, you say, is manipulation...
a form of verbal abuse?
It's not, but...
No.
Can you just...
No, because manipulation is like some...
Getting in your head.
Because you can also manipulate verbally, right? So...
Yeah, but...
So if you... Because there are...
I'm going to let the clinicians have it. I ain't finna answer.
So more of the story is, if that is a thing, right? Like if I was to look up types of verbal abuse, I'm pretty sure manipulation comes up.
So manipulation, using words to manipulate and control the other person, is a type of verbal abuse.
Again, I rest my case. So if I can sit here and say manipulation is a type of verbal abuse, I can assume...
No, actually, she said verbal manipulation is a type of verbal abuse.
Type doesn't mean it is verbal manipulation.
Because you don't always use
oh my God! Wait, hold on.
To manipulate.
I think that
someone who is verbally...
Like, I can manipulate...
I just want to finish my statement
language
without being interrupted. That's all I want to do.
But you asked for... But you asked her.
She gave me my answer. That was all I asked for.
You took a piece...
Yeah, you didn't... You mischaracterized it.
You can't take a piece of what I'm saying to manipulate what you're trying to say.
Is manipulation...
I see what you did there.
A type... Is manipulation a type of verbal abuse?
First of all, you can't just say...
Guys.
Burgundy a type of red.
Oh, hold on. But what she's saying was verbal manipulation is blah blah blah. It is a type of manipulation, but that's what she said. She said verbal manipulation.
So
Yes.
you can use finance to manipulate. You can use your physical status to manipulate. You can use verbal to manipulate.
Withholding sex to manipulate.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that you can use to manipulate.
So you're only proving my point, Mary. So I would like to continue on what I was saying without being interrupted. Thank you. So if we can argue that manipulation is a type of different types of abuses, financial abuse, as Mary said, verbal abuse, as Mary said, manipulating, in your words, right, by withholding sex should be I can never talk.
I'm just trying to say what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, you were going
Because
somewhere.
y'all interrupt every single time.
Go ahead.
Are you Rico?
Here it goes again.
Rico, please.
Are we good now?
Yeah, you're good.
You're the
All right,
king of
let's
interruptions.
please let me.
Don't do that.
Just please, Exhibit A. Let's please do this.
Now you're good. Now say your point.
All right. Thank you, Mary. So, if one can argue that manipulation is a type of abuse with other types of abuse, such as manipulating with verbal usage, manipulating with finances, are all forms of abuse in one aspect. So, in your words, withholding sex is a form of manipulation under the certain circumstances that it isn't being used because of some type of justifying factor. So we should be able to call withholding sex some type of abuse towards your partner if it's you really using it to manipulate a power dynamic within your relationship. I think that should be a normal thing.
Again, I wouldn't call it abuse. I think the abuse aspect comes in when it is starting to become consistent. It is something that is is a tactic that is regularly used to get what they want from the person. Now, if it's like a one-off thing, like, I'm frustrated with you, I'm not having sex with you, or you didn't, pick up the kids for me, so I'm not having sex with you, and that's something a tactic that you always use, yes, that can be seen as abuse. I would definitely categorize that. But if it's kind of like a one-off type of thing where you were just frustrated in the moment and that's the first thing you thought of, no, I wouldn't consider that abuse.
I agree wholeheartedly with you.
Thank you.
Only because that's usually not the case.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually an often tactic. You know what I'm saying? You don't just withhold sex one time, unless if it's something, again, you caught your partner cheating. That's obviously, I can understand 100%.
And again, as long as people recognize that there's a difference between saying, no, I do not want to have sex, and then, no, I'm using this as a tactic to, control you in some way.
Which is cool, or punish.
Control, yeah.
Control or punish. You know what I mean? Because that's what I think. A lot of times people withhold sex for a punishment, a consequential thing. Like that's what you get for telling me to wash the dishes a certain way. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's kind of like crazy to me. Well, I mean,
that doesn't really sound
that's
like
what you get what I'm saying, right?
that sounds like abuse and that sounds like punishment. But if I was angry with you about anything, I'm not turned on enough to have sex with you anyway. So you can see it as a punishment. I'm just not in the mood to be intimate with you.